If you've spent more than 5 minutes observing human behavior, you already know this. People don't use charm to connect. They use charm to escape. And no group has perfected this art, this tactical evasion, quite like the men who've spent their entire lives slipping through consequences like oil through fingers. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how they do it. Not because I admire it, not because you should imitate it, but because understanding the anatomy of manipulation is the only way to become immune to it. Charm is not sweetness. Charm is not warmth. Charm is not attraction. Charm is anesthesia. It numbs your suspicion. It softens your logic. It blinds the part of your brain that screams, something is off. Every man who relies on charm rather than integrity understands this instinctively. They wield charm the way a surgeon wields a scalpel, with precision, purpose, and a complete absence of emotional inconvenience. Before we go deeper, hit subscribe, because you and I are going to dismantle human games on this channel with the same cold precision people use to play them. Now, let's begin. There's a reason men lean on charm instead of accountability. Accountability is heavy. Charm is light. Accountability demands an explanation. Charm distracts you from ever asking. A responsible man steps toward responsibility. A charming one steps around it. So let's dissect the key tactics. Not with outrage, not with moral panic, but with strategic detachment. The only lens that reveals what people really do when they don't want to be held to their own words. The first tactic is the evasion smile. Every charming man has one. It's that soft, slightly apologetic grin he unveils the moment he knows he's cornered. Not the grin he uses when he's genuinely amused. No, that one is sloppy. This one is clean, practiced, engineered. The evasion smile appears when he's late, when he forgets a message, when he breaks a promise he never intended to keep. The smile disarms you. It conveys an almost childlike innocence, as if you're the one being dramatic for expecting baseline consistency. The neuroscience is simple. Humans instinctively associate smiles with safety, and safety with truth. So he smiles, and your brain softens, and he walks away, consequence-free. But don't clap yet. That's only entry-level charm. The advanced players use a far more sophisticated tactic, the emotional mirage. This is when he fabricates vulnerability. Not real vulnerability, but its cinematic imitation. He'll open up about something heartbreaking but irrelevant. An ex, a mistake, a childhood wound that has nothing to do with the current situation, but everything to do with redirecting your attention. He is not baring his soul. He is bearing a distraction. The emotional mirage is charm's nuclear weapon. It says, "Don't hold me accountable. Hold me instead." And many do, especially the people who confuse empathy with submission. Now, before we continue, understand one thing. None of this makes him a villain. Humans rarely wake up and decide to be villains. They wake up and decide to protect their image, their comfort, their ego. Charm is simply the path of least resistance. But for a certain type of man, the one who grew up realizing that a well-timed compliment or a gentle tone could bail him out of any inconvenience, charm becomes a lifestyle, a currency, a shield, and occasionally, a weapon. You've met this man before. Everyone has. He drifts through life like a soft breeze. He never argues directly. He never takes ownership unless it costs him nothing. He is polite, agreeable, even sweet. And yet for some reason, every relationship he touches sinks just a little. Not because he is cruel, but because he is evasive. Evasion is its own form of destruction. But here's the real trick. He never looks like the problem. The simps of the world, the ones who perform obedience in hopes of earning affection, worship this man. They take his charm at face value, mistaking his lack of friction for depth, calling him such a good guy. They don't realize that good and harmless are not synonyms. Men who rely on charm to dodge responsibility aren't harmless. They are simply soft-spoken. A wolf in silk is still a wolf. Now let's turn to the strategic side, the part I know many of you came for. What actually makes men so good at using charm? Why does it work? To answer that, you have to understand that charm is not spontaneous. It is learned, rehearsed, repeated, refined over years of social conditioning. And the conditioning begins early. As boys, many men are taught that speaking gently avoids punishment, that smiling reduces conflict, that being nice earns love. And so they grow up confusing charm with virtue, believing they are good because they are pleasant. But pleasant men, in practice, can be the most strategically dangerous. Pleasantness becomes their escape hatch. When confronted, they retreat into softness. When criticized, they retreat into confusion. "I didn't mean it like that," becomes their catchphrase. "I'm just trying to make you happy," becomes their armor. Their charm is a shield of innocence they use to avoid entering adulthood fully. Let's move into the darker layer, because this is where the shadow really shows. When charm fails, these men pivot to the next level: selective incompetence. Selective incompetence is the strategic performance of helplessness. He pretends he doesn't understand what he did wrong. He pretends that the situation is too complicated. He pretends he is incapable of the responsibility being demanded. This gives him plausible deniability. It buys him sympathy. It places you in the role of teacher rather than judge. Selective incompetence is not a mistake. It is a maneuver. And those who fall for it, not because they're stupid, they fall for it because nurturing someone feels powerful, and he knows that. Charm, at its core, is the manipulation of perception. When you believe he is incapable of accountability, you stop expecting it. This is the real sleight of hand. But the most devastating tactic, the one experienced charmers use when all else fails, is the redemption fantasy. In this one, he does not avoid accountability. He performs it. He apologizes. He takes responsibility. He expresses remorse. But here's the twist. He does not intend to change. He only intends to reset your expectations so he can return to a comfortable equilibrium. His accountability is theatrical, not transformational. Charm is the performance. Accountability is the illusion. And the person watching is the audience. This is why intelligent women, women who understand the psychology of power, never rely on words. They watch patterns. They watch behaviors. They watch consistency. Because charm without consistency is decoration. Pretty, yes. Useful, no. This is where charm ceases to be a tactic and becomes an ecosystem, a self-contained world built around avoiding judgment. And in this world, reality itself becomes negotiable. Let me show you how they do it. The first advanced tactic is the reframing flip. You've seen this. It's when he subtly shifts the meaning of the situation so you can't stay angry without looking unreasonable. For example, you confront him about disappearing for 3 days. He reframes your concern as insecurity. You bring up his broken promise. He reframes it as miscommunication. You highlight a pattern. He reframes it as overthinking. Reframing is a charm tactic disguised as emotional maturity. It's not overt, not aggressive. It's gentle, smooth, persuasive, like honey poured over a bruise. But here's the truth most people don't want to admit. Reframing is psychological aikido. He redirects the force of your logic back toward you. By the time he's finished, the argument isn't about what he did. It's about how you reacted. This is the first sign he has no intention of being accountable. He'd rather rewrite the problem than resolve it. The second advanced tactic is reputation laundering. This is not about lying. Lying is clumsy, amateurish. Reputation laundering is far more elegant. It's the subtle construction of an identity so socially reliable that, when conflict arises, your instinct is to defend him, even against yourself. Charming men do this constantly. They form alliances. They accumulate goodwill. They make sure everyone around them sees them as generous, kind, stable. Not because they are. Many genuinely believe they're doing nothing wrong. But because a positive reputation is the best shield against scrutiny. This is why so many people swear he would never do that, even when evidence suggests otherwise. Charm doesn't just protect him from accountability. It recruits an army to protect him for free. Let's move to the third tactic, emotional fog. This tactic is devastatingly effective. It is charm stripped down to its purest function. When he senses you're gaining clarity about his behavior, he introduces confusion. He becomes warm, then distant. He apologizes, then minimizes. He comforts you, then subtly guilt trips you. He injects contradiction until your emotional instinct and your intellectual reasoning are at war. And when emotion and logic collide, people freeze. That freeze is the goal. Emotional fog creates paralysis. As long as you're confused, you can't demand accountability. You can't walk away. You can't form a clean conclusion. Charm in this phase is like mist. Soft, shapeless, but impossible to grasp. And this brings us to the most advanced tactic of all, the masterstroke, the virtue mirror. Only seasoned charmers use this one. This tactic is when he reflects your strongest values back to you, but only in moments when he feels the threat of consequences. He mirrors your language, your principles, your moral compass. If you care about communication, suddenly he does too. If you value loyalty, his speeches are filled with it. If you emphasize self-growth, he transforms into a self-help sermon. But this doesn't come from conviction. It comes from strategy. A man using the virtue mirror is not aligning with you. He is impersonating alignment. He is adopting your values temporarily, so you feel seen, understood, validated, and therefore less likely to enforce consequences. Charm reaches its final stage when it stops being about avoiding accountability and starts being about rewriting who you think he is. Because if he successfully shapes your perception, he no longer has to avoid accountability. You simply stop demanding it. Now, let's shift focus. Because the question isn't really, how do men use charm? The real question is, why does charm work? To answer that, let's zoom out. People don't fall for charm because they are weak. People fall for charm because it is familiar. Charm feels safe. Charm feels warm. Charm feels like the emotional equivalent of a soft blanket on a cold night. Accountability, on the other hand, feels like stepping outside at dawn barefoot on concrete. One is comforting. One is awakening. Most choose comfort. But the people who don't, the ones who insist on clarity, consistency, responsibility, These are the people charming men cannot stand, not because they are difficult, but because they are immune. Nothing terrifies a charming man more than someone who sees him clearly. This is why intelligent women, women who have learned to weaponize observation, pattern recognition, and emotional neutrality, are the natural predators of charm. They don't get swept up in the softness of tone or the sweetness of expression. They analyze, they observe, they watch with detachment. They know charm is not proof of character. Charm is proof of skill, and skills are tools, not virtues. So how do you see through charm? With the same cold clarity charm denies you. First, ignore tone. Watch behavior. Second, ignore words. Track patterns. Third, ignore apologies. Measure change. Fourth, ignore potential. Evaluate reality. Charm lives in the gap between how someone presents themselves and how they behave. Close the gap, and charm dies instantly. Now, let's end this with the single truth most people never hear. A charming man is not dangerous because he is charming. He is dangerous because charm lets him operate without friction. Charm gives him access. Charm gives him forgiveness. Charm gives him endless second chances he never earns. And the final stage, the one this entire script has been leading toward, is this. A man who never meets resistance never develops accountability. When you remove consequences, you remove growth. When you remove friction, you remove integrity. When you remove responsibility, you remove character. Charm is not the opposite of accountability. Charm is the absence of it. And if you take nothing else from this video, take this. Never confuse charm with goodness. Never confuse pleasantness with strength. And never, under any circumstances, confuse softness with sincerity. The people who rely on charm the most are often the people who fear accountability the deepest. And now that you see the architecture of charm, every beam, every layer, every escape route, it can no longer operate on you in the dark. If you're ready for more psychological dissections, more strategic breakdowns, and more cold clarity about the games people play, hit subscribe. Because understanding behavior is the first step to rising above it. This is the coaching link. It's called The Dark Side of Your Mind. Coaching is on sale, since there's plenty of people going through relationship problems this new year. You can choose between the two options, either the $40 or the $60. Click Add to Cart. Enter your first name and last name, then your email address where I will contact you. And lastly, your question, then add to cart.